Hey guys, Ben here and welcome back to another video on Superman Lois Season 3. Today we're going to be doing my review for episode 11 that aired last night. So if you do go on to enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any DCTV videos later this year. So this episode was really good. I apologize that I didn't get my video out right after the episode came out, but we're doing it right now. First things first, we have no episode next week. We are taking a 1 week break. I thought I had to tell you straight away just in case you guys were wondering why there won't be a review out next week, but obviously we'll continue making Superman Lois videos as we head towards episode 12. But just overall, this episode kind of felt like a finale because basically this episode wrapped up things with Bruno and Pierre before Lex Luthor is set to come in. We know that he's coming. We've been waiting for him. We weren't sure if he was going to show up in this episode or if he was going to show up in those final 2 episodes. So we got episode 12 and 13 left, and then that's it for season 3, and hopefully we'll get another season after that if all goes well with the CW and maybe HBO Max. So we just have to keep our fingers crossed for now, but we can appreciate how good Superman Lois is by just watching this episode. So I think things may be looking up. We'll have to wait and see. But first things first, let's go ahead and break down this episode chronologically, starting with the beginning. So we have Lois, who is being prepared for her surgery. Obviously this has been a big thing coming since she has got cancer. And, you know, she's gone through all the chemo and now she's at the stage where she has to have the surgery in order to stop the cancer from spreading. And so this is a big deal. She invites everyone round in order to support her. And so everyone comes around to the Kent family farm nearer to the start of the episode. You have the whole family there from her side and Clark's side. Then you have John, Henry, Natalie and the Langs who are all present as they try and support Lois. It's a short but sweet couple of scenes with them. However, between the character moments we have a few tense moments, especially with Sarah, who confronts Jordan after Natalie talks about wanting to talk to Mateo at least one last time and saying what she truly believes and thinks. And so Sarah confronts Jordan, but this doesn't really go to plan. Like, Jordan is still kind of adamant about his feelings, and basically Sarah sums up that she's not friends with him anymore, and she actually starts spiraling later in the episode and consistently crying throughout the whole night because of what was said to her. Obviously I feel bad for her, but the whole situation is very tricky because really you can't really blame either one of them. It's been a bit of both. Obviously Jordan was quite honest with his answers, but then Sarah was the one to kind of confront him, and obviously Jordan's been a bit uncomfortable in past episodes, especially since Sarah got into that crash that nearly killed her and he had to save her. But in the meantime we have Mateo, Bruno and Pierre who are prepping to escape and move elsewhere and live out their lives in a beachside location. However, things don't go to plan because unbeknownst to Bruno, his cure doesn't work. It only works to a certain extent, and actually it drives the person who has been injected even more crazy. Like, the disease is like temporarily cured, but it becomes even worse and uncontrollable as we see in this episode. But in Smallville we have Clark talking to Kyle about being Superman. Obviously he revealed that at the end of last episode. They don't make a big deal out of it this episode, apart from this scene and what happens with Chrissy as Kyle storms out. He's not happy that she lied to him. He's okay with like everyone else because obviously they're in a different situation, but considering how close they've got recently, I guess he expected more. However, this is clearly him overreacting, and he does come around at the end of the episode and apologize to Chrissy for his actions. But then we skip forward to the next day. We have the whole family at Hobbs Bay for Lois's surgery. It's being prepped, and John Henry tracks Natalie to the Mannheim residence whilst they're doing this, but no one is there. But Natalie has left something behind in order to track in case anyone comes back to the Mannheim residence and office. John Henry is adamant that, you know, she has to move on because if she continually thinks about him, and obviously right now Mateo and Bruno and his mum are all planning to actually escape, this will basically haunt Natalie for the rest of her life because she's just going to be thinking about that, and it's basically not good for her in the long term. But this is where things start going crazy, because at the hospital Lois is being prepped for her surgery, like I said, but Jordan starts freaking out. He goes into the hallway and you see his X-ray vision start kicking in, and so it's coming in at the worst point, just like when he's had his freeze breath, he's had his heat vision in the past. It's been absolutely terrible because he's not able to control it, but he is actually calmed down by his brother, which was actually quite a nice surprise because it was a nice moment between the two of them. And so Jonathan gets Jordan to relax and basically to chill out because he's just freaking out and his X-ray vision's kicking in. It's going crazy, like he's seeing everything around the hospital, and so he manages to calm down. But that's a cool new power that we're going to see Jordan kind of try and handle over the next couple of episodes, I guess. And if we get a season 4, that's definitely something he's going to be using more often as he becomes closer to becoming Superboy, which surely is going to happen at some point. Like, that's definitely another reason and motivation for why I want another season or another 2 seasons, because I feel like there is so much more that we can develop with these characters. But then we go over to Pierre, who is freaking out once again, and she is totally losing control. Things seem to be normal for just a minute as Bruno injects her with another dose of the cure, but it doesn't work. She is absolutely lost control, just as Lois says at the same time this is happening, because tremors are felt all around Metropolis, especially at the hospital, because that's very near to where Bruno is based. And so that's obviously not good news for Lois, who is supposed to go into her surgery. But Lois says let's go ahead with it because she's pumped herself up to actually do it, and she believes in Superman and the rest of the team to try and stop Pierre from actually destroying the city, and just in general to try and calm her down. And so Lois goes into surgery as Pierre accidentally straight up kills one of Bruno Mannheim's main henchmen, and that was absolutely brutal. Like, it was just a spur of the moment thing where her powers were just totally freaking out, and she screamed and he literally splattered all over the train. It was insane. I can't believe they actually did that on the CW show. I think that's just another instance of Superman Lois being unlike any of the other Arrowverse shows. It's just so good, it's so truthful, it's so real, and I think this episode was just totally the example of why it's such a good show. And so Superman is trying to find the Mannheims before it's too late. Same goes for the DoD, but it's actually Natalie who finds Mateo as her AI detects that he's there at the Mannheim residence. So she shows up and she wants to help him out once again, but she is quickly interrupted by Bruno as he shows up with a bunch of guns with his henchmen. And that's not before John Henry shows up and takes out all of the henchmen in order to save Natalie. And so at this moment they actually come to some sort of agreement because of what's happening with Pierre, because obviously Bruno cares deeply about his wife, and so does Mateo about his mum, and somehow they're able to find some sort of connection and some sort of little bit of trust that they have in order to slightly work together. And so they're like, can Superman do anything? And John Henry's like, I have no idea, but let's hope so. And whilst this is all happening back in Smallville, where they're not feeling the tremors, Sarah's talked to by Carl and Lana, and he just reveals a story about his past and how he drank to make his kind of sadness go away, and how he hit rock bottom at once, but he knew he had to make changes, and you know, that was sparked by doing something. And so they think maybe her preoccupying herself with something else, like a job, could be a good thing for her in order to move on. And I think that's actually very true. And so she actually is going to be a waitress at the diner in Smallville, which is going to be interesting to see because like the whole town shows up there. But I think it's going to be good for her, so I hope we get to see more of this development in the next couple of episodes, and I look forward to finding out where Sarah's story takes her by the end of the season. But Superman finally tracks down Pierre in the streets. He tries to approach her, but her powers are going absolutely insane. Like, the whole city is shaking, the whole block is crumbling to pieces. Everyone around them is just shaking on the ground, you know, like struggling to get up, because it's just so powerful. It's like Black Canary's cry, but even more powerful, because even Superman is able to be like flung away by the shriek from her voice. But he's determined to actually stop this once and for all, and so he approaches Pierre and actually finally convinces her to let go. And so he flies her up into the sky after a brief word where she whispers something to him, and we can obviously infer that this is something of her family, perhaps a message to send to her son and obviously Bruno as well. So the two of them go up into the sky, and she lets go as this massive eruption takes place. She releases everything that she's been holding in. Obviously she's been holding it in for her family, because despite all the pain, she's been holding it in, and it's just been terrible for everyone else surrounding her. And so now, in order for the good of everyone, she has to finally let go, and she actually does, with the help of Superman, who flies her up and has that last word with her before Superman comes down from the sky and brings her back to Bruno and Mateo. She's dead, and they're extremely sad. They go and they hug her, obviously, and Superman delivers the words that she whispered to him. And despite her obviously not being around anymore, they're really appreciative of Superman actually figuring out what to do. And so that was a great wrap up for her story, because I felt like this was inevitable, and it was clearly getting worse and worse despite the cure supposedly working. It basically just gave them false hope, and even at one point we thought maybe this cure would be administered to Lois, because it basically can bring people back from the dead, as we see later in the episode, but also it has terrible effects for people that are actually living, and that can be seen with what's happened to Pierre, with her freaking out all across the city. And so great news for Lois, she actually didn't go through this. So going through cancer the normal way actually turned out to save Lois's life, as opposed to what happened to Pierre. But after this, at the DOD, we have Bruno and Mateo in holding with General Lane and John Henry, and Bruno actually proposes that he takes responsibility for his past actions, which is a complete surprise, but at the same time not really, because we know how much he cares for his son. And so this is in order for Mateo to be free and to live his life without charges hanging over his head. And so I really love this ending. I thought this was the perfect ending for Bruno, because yes, at the end of the day he is a bad guy, but he always saw himself as a good guy, and so now he's owning up to his actions and doing something good for once for his son. And obviously this was all led on by what happened to Pierre, and the fact that he made the mistake of trying to force this on her in order to try and save her. But the ending of the episode is something that I was totally not expecting. Bizarro is back. He's alive. He is walking. So the cure worked for one person, bringing Bizarro back from the dead after doing all those experiments on him in order to try and make the cure. And so his hands click into position, his face is kind of all zombie-like, and he's losing control. His heat vision is working once again, and this is going to be a big thing that they're going to deal with in the last 2 episodes of the season. I think for sure he's not going to be the same Bizarro we saw from last season. He's sort of like a zombie Bizarro, probably more like the comic version of the character, who had little intelligence and almost acted like a zombie. And so yeah, he's back from the dead, which is insane. We knew that Bruno's cure could do this, but I wasn't expecting Bizarro to fully come back, but you can tell he's not himself, as I mentioned. So I'm pretty sure this is going to all be leading towards him freaking out and going all doomsday. So something similar to what happened to Pierre is going to happen to him, but I believe they're going in a different direction with this. So I'm really looking forward to it. Hopefully you guys are, and I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about in terms of what I think could be coming in the season finale or the episode before, but probably the season finale makes sense. So for now, thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you're excited for the next episode. Remember, it's not on next week, it's on the week after. Lex Luthor is coming for the first time in Superman Lois. We've been waiting for this for a long time, but it's finally happening after they've wrapped up this story with Bruno Mannheim and Pierre. So for now, if you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment. It really helps out the channel. Also subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos. And you can click on the top right corner of the screen to watch my latest video. But for now, I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.
I see red.